In the dimly lit streets of Paris, a shadowy figure moved silently through the night. This figure was none other than the Count of Monte Cristo, a mysterious and enigmatic man with a dark past and a thirst for vengeance. As he made his way through the narrow alleyways and winding backstreets of the city, he was consumed by thoughts of the betrayal that had led him to this point. It had been years since the Count had been wronged by those he once trusted, years since he had been imprisoned for a crime he did not commit. But now, after his miraculous escape from the grim confines of the Chateau, he had returned to Paris with a single purpose in mind: to exact his revenge on those who had betrayed him. As the Count made his way through the city, he knew that his enemies were watching his every move. They knew that he had returned, and they were afraid of what he might do. But the Count was not afraid. He was a man consumed by a burning rage, a man who would stop at nothing to see justice done and vengeance served. As he reached his destination, a dark and imposing mansion on the outskirts of Paris, the Count felt a sense of satisfaction. This was the home of one of his most trusted friends, a man who had betrayed him in the most cruel and insidious way possible. And now, the time had come for him to pay for his treachery. With a sense of grim determination, the Count made his way into the mansion, his steps silent and purposeful. He knew that he would face many obstacles on his path to vengeance, but he was prepared for whatever lay ahead. He had spent years planning his revenge, and now the time had come to set his plan into motion. As he crept through the darkened corridors of the mansion, the Count's mind raced with thoughts of the past. He remembered the days of his imprisonment, the loneliness and despair that had consumed him. But now, as he stood on the brink of his revenge, he felt a sense of power and control that he had never known before. Finally, the Count reached the inner sanctum of the mansion, where his former friend and betrayer waited for him. As he entered the room, a flicker of recognition crossed the man's face, followed by a look of fear and disbelief. He knew that the Count had returned, and he knew that he was about to pay for his sins. With a single swift motion, the Count drew a dagger from beneath his cloak and advanced on his former friend. The man begged for mercy, pleaded for forgiveness, but the Count's heart was hardened by years of suffering and betrayal. With a cold and steely gaze, he plunged the dagger into the man's heart, ending his life in an instant. As the life drained from his former friend's eyes, the Count felt a sense of satisfaction and vindication. His long-awaited revenge had been exacted, his enemies vanquished, and as he stood over the lifeless body of his betrayer, he knew that his days of hiding and waiting were over. With a sense of finality, the Count of Monte Cristo turned and made his way back into the night, leaving behind a legacy of vengeance and justice that would never be forgotten. And as he disappeared into the shadows, his enemies whispered his name in fear and awe, knowing that they had crossed paths with a man whose wrath was as fierce and unrelenting as the stormy seas.